The sky so far, but I can't lose it.
Let's be innovative. Let's challenge the norm. Let's raise the bar. Let's be the elite.
A new beginning, another opportunity to make a statement. Lionheart celebrates its roots with the car that started it all. 18 races to determine who is the best in the most exciting form of auto racing on the planet. 200-mile-per-hour Indy cars inches from disaster or glory. There can only be one Lionheart Speedway Series champion whose name will be etched into the Lionheart history books. The Lionheart Speedway Series presented by Moser Racing starts now.
Just a few weeks ago, a rookie by the name of Shane Cogan was able to bring his team to victory lane under yellow at Michigan International Speedway. But even more so of importance, that day Matt Taylor and Matt Wagner had a major separation. P3 for Taylor that day, P15 for Wagner, which brings that championship fight ever so closer. And with the .133 mile circuit ready to bring to battle here, we'll see how the championship fares for the GRAAFix Esports Nashville 175 presented by ButtKicker. Hello everyone and welcome to Race 9 of Season 2 for the Lionheart Speedway Series presented by Moser Racing, live on RaceSpot TV and ESTV. Justin Prince, Andrew Cancel with you with the producer Tyler Maxson. The Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the luxury ultra comfortable cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperx.com. Let's get dialed on into our GRAAFix Esports countdown to green for tonight's action. The halfway point of the season being reached here tonight, Andrew, and it takes place in what should be one of the most difficult ventures for the Speedway Series drivers of the season at Nashville.
From the high banks of Michigan to the Music City here, the concrete canyon that you have before you today at Nashville Super Speedway, it's a 1 1/3 mile oval that, as you say, it'll be extremely challenging for these drivers. We have the Super Speedway aero package on this car, but it is a very tight and bumpy track that face these drivers here today, and it should be very difficult for these drivers to get through the race, but for those who do, big rewards will wait.
Let's take a look at your schedule presented by Next Level Racing. As mentioned, halfway point of the season being reached here tonight before a full distance Triple Crown race next Saturday on July the 9th. And it's been a busy campaign since Pocono, Atlanta, Kentucky, Worldwide Technology Raceway, also known as Gateway, Michigan, all before today. It's been a busy sprint to halfway.
It absolutely has, and I'm sure that right now they've got one eye on today, but also one eye on that Triple Crown race in 1.5 weeks' time. And then looking at the second half of the schedule, it doesn't get any easier, does it, Justin? We've got New Hampshire, a really tight short track, Chicago, Motegi, Iowa, lots of short tracks in front of these drivers in the second half of this season, and I'm sure that these drivers are going to keep that in mind. This could be a very good tune-up for some of them and a very good indication of who's going to be strong in this second half.
Especially in the mix for the championship. Let's take a look how that championship's faring out with your GRAAFix Esports driver standings. As mentioned, Matt Wagner, the points leader, had that gap reduced after a difference of about 12 spots between him and Matt Taylor last time out. The difference entering today, 18 points. Joe Branch is also in the mix, 27 back. Trevor Malone, Craig Forsyth, Andrew Wood, your top 6. Mike Rigney in 7th. Coogan with that victory is up to 8th in the standings, Andrew.
And it's so close in this top 10 right now. Coogan, obviously the victory, the big swing last time out, but you look at this, it's anybody in this top 10 still has a shot at this championship realistically. We've got a lot of really fast drivers, and some drivers who we thought would be fast aren't even on these driver standings in this top 10. So it is definitely going to be interesting to see how some of these drivers treat this second half of this season and really start to gear themselves up towards that.
Let's take a look over at your team standings presented by HyperX. Power Slide continuing to stay up at the top. Team Race for Sunset, we mentioned, took a bit of a hit team-wise with their roster shuffling, but they still have a decent distance back to Power Slide entering today.
Yeah, obviously Shane Coogan doing the heavy lifting last time out for Team Race for Sunset, keeping them in the hunt. But right now, Powerslide Motorsports, they've just been so consistent, led of course by Joe Branch in that third position in the driver's standings right now, doing a great job up there. But don't look past some of these other teams. Dark Horse Racing doing really well. Synergy Motorsports is coming on strong. 4D Sim Racing has started to fade back just a little bit, and Factory Back Motorsports, after a really rough start to this season, is starting to find their footing, and last year's team championship winners are starting to hit their stride, I think.
As seen with the championship standings, some of your top rookies presented by ButtKicker are also in the mix for the rookie championship. Andrew Wood, Shane Coogan separated by 4 points today. Samuel Ryman started off strong, has slipped back a bit. Gabe Wood, Jacob Oster, the top 5. A good recovery for Oster, give him credit. Remember, Oster started off abysmally for this season.
He really did, Justin, in that top 5 last time out for Oster. He really needed that run at Michigan last time out, and hopefully he's going to use that as a springboard here today towards bigger and better things, especially as we gear up for Indy in, again, 1.5 weeks' time. That's exactly the type of momentum you need coming into a track like that.
Let's take a look at your series details in turn presented by GSI, as this is the second season of this series. Its first trip to Nashville with custom fixed setups, with the Triple Crown, as mentioned, taking place in a week and a half from here. Alexis Newsom, the defending champion, picked up the victory in a huge Triple Crown race, the HyperX Indianapolis 500, just a couple days ago. In fact, about a day ago, Andrew. You picked up a good finish in that one. A chance to make history in this series, a part of that $6,930 cash prize total. $6,930.
Yeah, absolutely. Some fabulous cash and prizes here, and As always, we have our fix setup here today, and it's going to be a tricky one for these drivers. As mentioned, this track, it looks like a 1.5 mile sort of cookie cutter track, but it is anything but. It's tricky to get around. There's a very low downforce level for how tight the turns are, and the concrete here doesn't give much grip, so it's going to be very, very tricky for these drivers here today as they grapple with the setup and the race conditions here.
And keep in mind, we talked a bit about this before today's action. This is the Super Speedway package that you alluded to there, absolutely. Lots of off-throttle time is expected. Speeds of 210 miles an hour down to 170 in the heart of the corners. That's going to be tricky in the heart of the pack, you'd have to think.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when you get back 10, 12 cars in a pack, you're going to have a lot of aero wash there. You're going to have to really manage not just the throttle, but I think the brake as well. This is really going to be more of a short track style of driving that these drivers are going to have to master. And that's why I do think that this is going to give us a good indication of just where these drivers are coming into the second half of the season, where we do have more short tracks coming up.
Absolutely. Give a shout out to the practice charts. Matt Wagner, top of the board with a 23.851 currently. Wood, Fowler, Nunez, and Hawkins the third, the top five. And those speeds, keep in mind, going to be critical in terms of some of the adaptation today. We might see a bigger qualifying time spread compared to past runs here in turn, or past races on the schedule is the better term.
Yeah, absolutely. You're going to have to nail your qualifying run, and it's so easy to just overestimate your speed going into one of these corners and suddenly find yourself 1 or 2 tenths off just simply because you didn't quite hit the line right. It's very line dependent. It's very throttle and input dependent. You need to nail your qualifying run. It's going to be pressure packed for these next 5 or so minutes as these drivers attempt to qualify here.
That's in 30 seconds from now. Who are some of the drivers you think who can get the job done tonight based on their experience here then?
Yeah, I'm looking at some of the series veterans. Tony Schowen has traditionally done a good job on the shorter tracks. Joe Branch, another one. You also have to look at Matt Wagner, your championship point leader. He's been able to adapt to all sorts of different tracks this year and has been fast on pretty much anything. Joe Hassard, another one in sort of the top 6 or 7 right now in terms of time. I think that he could be a big factor here tonight.
Drivers finishing up their final practice session of the night. It's time to see how they fare out in qualifying to set the grid for tonight's action here from Nashville Super Speedway, 30 miles away from the Music City, located in Lebanon, Tennessee. Drivers now getting themselves sorted and situated for qualifying. 5 minutes total, rather. 2 sole qualifying laps to be able to determine who is going to start where here tonight. You mentioned the importance of track position, especially in the heart of that pack. Drivers now looking to get on the track. Amongst those getting on first, Dakota DeMain and company, ready to bring them to the start of the qualifying.
And I think that a bunch of people will try and get out early in this qualifying session, set a good time. There's not much point in waiting very long. The other thing that you'll notice, you won't see many drivers really riding that high side. It's all about optimizing your lines, and you have to do it on both your warm-up lap and the flying laps that really count. You have to make sure that you're carrying as much momentum as possible, and it's all about eliminating the scrub. As mentioned, you're going to have to get off the throttle a fair bit through these corners to really make it work. So because of that, it's all about the inputs. It's all about the line.
See where DeMain is after the first of the 2 laps. That turn for a wall really been a fair view of drivers in IndyCar competition earlier this year. 24 flat to start. Frank Carter also putting in a time to begin the drivers up on the board. A few of the others who came out with them already had to pull off. DeMain scraping the wall there a bit. There's the lift. That's the end of the run for DeMain.
And you can see he just gets to the throttle a split second too soon, and it nearly puts him into that safer barrier on the outside of turn 2. It's so easy to just miscalculate by just a split second. George Anzaldo here, he's got a good lap going from that first time. Let's see if he can improve. No, it's still P3 there for George Anzaldo, now P4.
Gabe Wood still at the top of the board currently. Mike Rigney putting a challenge on for it, though. Mostly everybody who's started up their second lap has either scraped the wall in lap 2 or not been able to top their time on their second laps. So we'll have to see who can improve here as the runs progress. Rigney looking to improve. in the green and white and gray machine. This time clips the grass, still counts, but slower. So the first lap looking like the trend so far.
Yeah, first lap definitely seems like the faster of the two. Jacob Oster with a nice lap. That's great news for the factory-backed motorsports car. Of course, we talked about throughout the season how he hasn't been the best at qualifying, but Oster at least in the top 6 right now. Vern Hawkins the third with a run to P2 as well. So I think the heavy hitters are starting to come out now. Joe Branch looks to be on a good lap right here as well.
And keep in mind, a few drivers have to start from the back of the field today. AJ Musselman, Michael Goodman, Rankin is also in the mix, as well as Andrew Wood and Will Gibson. Once the EOLs, there was one rescinded for Nick DeGroot prior to tonight's action. So big news for DeGroot, had one of his best runs of the season. Last time out was in the mix for victory at MIS. Branch currently 6th on the board, following along with them still, needing to pick up about 8/100ths of a second. Easier said than done here in this transition race, going from late evening to nighttime. Slower again on lap 2. Nunez up to second.
Ooh, great lap there from Luis Gonzalez Nunez. He's the first one to really try and challenge Gabe Wood. I do think Branch made a little bit of a tactical error trying to maximize lap 2 rather than lap 1. He didn't cut down and probably lost him a position or two there. Sam Ryman is another one starting his lap here. Let's right on board with him, and you can see just how much that these drivers have to drive the car through these corners. Ryman not quite as close to the bottom as some of the other drivers, and that's probably going to cost him in overall speed here. You need to be able to really hit this bottom of the racetrack through both of these corners in order to maximize your run.
Matt Wagner now top of the board, by the way, at 23.7 during that point. Gabe Wood in position for his best start of the season if things stay the way they are currently. Jim Herrick, the only other driver currently on racetrack. Of note, though, Matt Taylor looking to bump up, only gets up to 8th. As we continue to follow along with Ryman, now over to Herrick, who looks to set a time and hits the wall instead.
Suboptimal there for Jim Herrick, and I think Matt Taylor is definitely going to be breathing a sigh of relief after that last gasp run there for him. But we have some drivers who are starting very far back, including Trevor Malone, one of your championship contenders, did not get a good run in at all. Going to go off 27th here by the looks of it.
Not the greatest of runs for Trevor Malone, indeed. Not the greatest of runs for many of your contenders for the championship, even. We'll get to those in just a moment. But the points leader, Matt Wagner, sets the bar to start off the evening quickest in practice, now quickest in qualifying. Let's take a look at how they'll start here tonight. Drivers on the way to the starting grid tonight for Nashville Super Speedway in Lebanon, Tennessee. It's Matt Wagner on the pole with a 23.756. Gabe Wood starts in second for JD Esports. Luis Gonzalez Nunez and Vern Hawkins the third inside the top 4. Then it's Chris Fowler in 5th and Mike Rigney rounding out your top 6. 7th spot goes to Jenkins, followed by Matt Taylor, who gets up to 8th during his second lap. Joe Branch shuffles to 9th. Gonzalo Munoz inside the top 10. Brian King starts 11th with Tony Schowen, the top 12. 13th goes to Jacob Oster, followed by Joseph Hassard. Gavin Sanders alongside Brian Beard, 15th and 16th. 17th goes to Ron Hacker with Samuel Ryman back in 18th, 2/10 back of the pole. Behind them, George Anzaldo starts with a different color scheme tonight alongside Nick DeGroot. Isaiah Dupree starts 21st with Christian Jasper 22nd. Dakota DeMade and Creighton Carter, the top 24. 25th goes to Jim Herrick with Craig Forsyth, as talked about, towards the back in 26th with Trevor Malone 27th. Jeff Young starts in 28th with James Watson 29th. And then it's the EOL game. Andrew Wood is back there. Dean Mull did not set a time, 31st in the lineup. Scott Rankin EOL, Michael Goodman EOL, Hugo Gallas did not set a time, Will Gibson no time. Gary Gonzo, Sam Crow round out the 37 entrants here for tonight's action at Nashville. As the drivers get sorted and the last of the drivers get themselves ready to come onto the racetrack, let's take a look at your featured onboard cameras for tonight's action from Nashville. Tonight with the ButtKicker on board, it's Trevor Malone. Sim racing is better with ButtKicker. Visit thebuttkicker.com. Tonight with the GRAAFix Esports onboard camera, it's Creighton Carter. GRAAFix Esports, world-class design from the real world to virtual. Visit GRAAFixEsports.com. The next level racing on board goes to Matt Taylor. Take your racing to the next level. Visit nextlevelracing.com. And the last of those onboards not here tonight, but the rest of the field does have onboard cameras at their disposal here this evening. Real quickly, your keys to victory, Andrew, tonight from Nashville.
First of all, it's got to be patience. You're going to have to be patient throughout the run. You're going to have to be patient with the other drivers on track, and most of all, you're going to have to be patient on your inputs and really allow the car to rotate through the center of the corners. Then finally, I think you got to be getting that clean air somehow, and that gives Matt Wagner a huge advantage here coming to the green flag.
Competition, commitment, excitement. This is Lionheart. And this is the start for the GRAAFix Esports Nashville 175 presented by ButtKicker. Green flag waits up at the stand. We're underway from Nashville. And the battle already on for second. Nunez already up there. Wood trying to shuffle on backwards and hold on to things with Fowler looking to dive. First lead lap goes to Wagner.
Yeah, nice clean start from everyone here so far, and you can definitely see that the different lines, it definitely looks like at least early on here that low line is the place to be. Gabe Wood already back to P4 after starting on that high side there. And in fact, shuffled back by Vern Hawkins all the way back to P5 now. So it really does look like the at least early on, the grip is down low, and that's where most of these drivers are going to hang out here.
That was seen as well with the IndyCar series earlier this year. This is not an easy racetrack to get your hands around, to say the very least. As we talked about, it's a concrete surface, mind you, not the same surface as we've seen for a majority of your schedule in this series.
Absolutely, and that surface really does change the dynamic of how these cars run, especially, oh, Wood and Hawkins getting together through 1 and 2 there.
Oh, Wood trying to stay at the bottom of the racetrack after that. 3 wide now with Paul Jenkins to the middle. Mike Regney forced up off the bottom from all that. So Gabe Wood holding on for now, no major damage. We stay green. Sam Crow also having to serve a black flag is already in the pit lane.
Yeah, that was some real tense stuff there. Wood tried to put it in on the bottom, and the car just would not stay down there, and he drifted up into Vern Hawkins, and they were lucky to get away with it there, Justin. But going back to the point I was making, this surface, one of the things about it is in addition to the lack of grip simply because of the concrete surface, it's also a very bumpy, so it does tend to be able to upset the car a little bit more than one of your smoother asphalt surfaces like we saw last week at Michigan.
And keep in mind the track temperature's very cool. 65 Fahrenheit air temperature, 69 degrees Fahrenheit is the track temperature. Side by side is on. Meanwhile, up inside the top 5. Up inside the top 10, should say, with Taylor and Jenkins looking to shuffle for 6th position.
Yeah, and you can definitely see that passes around this track, it doesn't just take one corner, it'll be multiple corners, and in some cases multiple laps. A lot of patience required here from these drivers, and it also opens you up to sort of the crossover maneuver that you're seeing right now. Paul Jenkins does not want to let Matt Taylor get away here, with the position here, and he is fighting back on the inside now.
Still looking to hold on to with Taylor trying different lines, but if anyone can make passes, it's Taylor. Meanwhile, heart of the race pack, it's getting very busy. If you were battling for 10th on back, Munoz is trying to run the outside. Ryan Eric King, who's bobbled loose a couple times already, is trying to figure out a way around with Tony Schowen, Big Joe Hassert, and Sanders in the mix.
Yeah, this is what can happen when you have a qualifying session like we did. We know that a couple of very fast drivers are towards the back of the field, and at a track like this, it really means that towards the back half of the top 10, that top 20 sort of area, it creates a lot of chaos. And there's some really tight battling going on, as you say.
Chris Fowler, by the way, up to second. You see top corner of your screen. Down to the bottom right now, a lot of battling still with Joe Hassert trying to battle with Sanders. That is currently for 13th position in the heart of the field.
And you can see that high line there that Sanders is running. It is starting to open up just a little bit, so you can already tell the tires are starting to go off, and that is going to be characteristic again of that concrete surface. It does wear through these tires a little bit faster than you would get at an asphalt track, so I think that we are going to see these tires fall off a fair bit through the run, and especially where the grip is going to change as this night wears on.
So integral, the concrete surface compared to the asphalt when it comes to what we see on the platform. Hassert trying to sort things out, can't figure things out currently. And now getting turned! Brian Beard up and towards the wall. He's able to keep it off the fence, but it's Joe Hassert that gets into him. 2-3 wide to get around Big Joe Hassert's destroyed 11 car.
Yeah, we are still green by some miracle there. It just looked like happenstance that Beard was able to get pointed back straight again. And it looks like both of them have escaped with minimal damage, although I'm sure that we do have damage on at least Joe Hassert's car, if not Beard's as well. We'll have to see how they're able to gather themselves up, but that was definitely a heart-in-mouth moment for Brian Beard.
Hassert has major wing damage on the right front already. Carter Ramonsto zipping on by with Gian, and you see how many drivers are lining on up to get around the purple and white machine. That is massive, massive damage for the rest of the run. A big slide in front of them, Creighton Carter.
Yeah, Carter got very loose on the entrance into one there, and as you say, Justin, that's going to be a massive disadvantage for Joe Hassert. You really need to have as much downforce as you possibly can on this car, because it is so limited in terms of downforce in this configuration. So any amount of damage will be very, very painful for at least the rest of this run for Joe Hassert.
One car nearly into the inside grass. Dean Mull nearly looping it. Able to hold on to it. Dean is the biggest mover for now. And mirror contact now there is for Andrew Wood into the grass.
And that was an unfortunate incident there for Andrew Wood. A little bit of air puts him into the inside wall, or inside grass there, and all the good work that Wood had done to get up through the field, that's all gone for naught there, and he's going to have to gather himself back up and get back to it here. But what we're seeing here, I think, Justin, is a lot of these drivers are really pushing as hard as they can, and you get a lot of understeer through these corners, so you put a lot of wheel into this car, and then on the exit of the corner, when you need to unwind that wheel, sometimes you just don't unwind it quick enough, and that's where you're seeing these cars starting to snap a little bit, is they're just not, or they just have too much wheel in it by the time that they land on the exit of these corners.
Grant Carter, by the way, also backing down to the pit lane. Here's a look at Wood. Massive slide, a bit of a save as well for Andrew Wood, but that puts him 16 seconds back of the leaders. And you see how busy it's still getting to get around some of these damaged cars.
Yeah, there's a log jam here behind Christian Jasper and Joe Hassert right here. I believe that is Dakota DeMade right behind him, and then Trevor Malone, he's another driver sort of on the recovery here, trying to overcome his starting position where he made those mistakes in qualifying. And he certainly made some progress, but it's getting stalled out behind Joe Hassert right here.
Just nowhere to go. Well, the lane that's not the 11s is a place. Joe Hassert has gone from the teens back to 27 with how bad that right front wing damage is. Looking like Hassert hoping for the caution, because if you pit, you're likely to lose a lap here at this racetrack. In fact, Carter, with the wing change, has lost 2 laps already. So that's a major factor you have to consider if this is the reasoning this 11 staying out.
Yeah, absolutely. This is still a fairly short track. It's only 23-second laps here. So you really have to consider whether or not you want to make the pit stop if you're Joe Hassert. Basically, what you're if you're Joe Hassert, you're hoping for a caution here. You're hoping that the craziness that you've seen around you keeps on going, and that you can find a way to get a caution and a wing change without losing those laps. But if you keep this up for another 40 or 50 laps until that fuel window opens, you might be losing 2 laps anyways.
Keep in mind, the gaps are starting to shrink with some of the drivers getting really squirrely with the older tires. Here's Michael Goodman amongst those, talking to battle from the back. And keep in mind, it's so difficult to battle at tracks like this at times. But Matt Wagner is losing ground. He has struggled the past few laps. The gap that was more than a second has gone down to 3/10, with Chris Fowler trying to match wheel to wheel even in the aero wash.
Yeah, and Chris Fowler has actually gotten by Luis Gonzalez Nunez as well here, while we were watching all the chaos in the back of the field. So Fowler is one of the drivers who is on the move. He really seems to have figured it out in terms of this mid-run sort of pace. Wagner, you can see he's struggling with the car right now. It's just not turning the way he wants it to, and he's not getting the car down into the corner the way Fowler is. And you can see Fowler really diving to the bottom of the track using the clean air that is being left by Matt Wagner, and he's just able to get the drive off so much better than Wagner is right now.
Indeed, the main thing is closing that gap within the 3/10 seems to be the tricky thing for Fowler. And we talked about this. He showed good speed. It's just a matter of showing good results, whether it's in Speedway, whether it's in IndyCar.
Yeah, right now, if I'm Fowler, I'm concentrating on maybe not pushing too hard too early in this race, and just maintaining that sort of 3 to 6/10 margin that he has right now on Matt Wagner. If I can do this for a full stint, it's going to put Chris Fowler in a really good position for later on in this race, particularly because he is still very much in the draft of Matt Wagner. It's going to allow him to save fuel. It's going to allow him to stretch this stint out just a little bit further and potentially give him opportunities later on in the race for some strategy.
One of the drivers I've talked about in the past who is the master of finding ways to pass at short tracks, though, in dirty air, Matt Taylor. Taylor's already up 3 spots at the end of runs. That's where Taylor seems to shine. Richmond is one of his playgrounds that we've seen him pass cars through in the mid of the pack late in races. Iowa's been up there. He now makes the pass for 4th.
Yeah, and where Taylor's really strong is on the exit of corners, similar to what we saw from Chris Fowler on Matt Wagner as well. Taylor is just so good at getting the throttle down and getting the run out of corners, and it allows him to really make the passes work where some other drivers might not have the patience mid-corner to really nail the corner exits like Taylor does. But he really understands how to get these cars around tracks like this.
Vern Hawkins III not making things easy, though, thinking about going back and forth. They're also bringing Mike Rigney into the fray here with all this shuffling. Joe Hassert has signaled over the radio, by the way, that he is finally able to find a way to the access road to get to pit lane. He had dropped from what was about a few seconds back of the leader to 20 seconds back by the time he reached the cone. Taylor holding on now for 4th, has to gain 2 seconds to get up to Wagner.
Yeah, and I do think that Hassert finally realized that with the way that the run was going, he just needed to pit, especially because this car and this track already uses that right front up so much. Having that little downforce on the front tires would just make it almost unbearable to drive. So I'm not surprised to see Joe Hassert down here. Meanwhile, we're on board here with Ron Hacker. We've got a nice little battle right in front of Hacker. That's Munoz and Ryan Eric King in front of him.
Currently trying to build up the run for 16th up to 15th is Hacker on the outside. George Enzotto in the mix has a big lift for Munoz. Near contact, a big bubble, and a big save. Samuel Ryman also joining the party, has to lift hard.
And Joe Hassert rejoining the racetrack right in front of the battle as well. So it's all sort of kicking off right and around this battle right here. This is the best action on the track. And I do think that you're seeing a lot of coming and going at this stage of the stint, and you can really tell which drivers right now, Justin, are able to keep the tires underneath them and which drivers are using them up.
Gary Gotso, by the way, also had to pit. Also got a black flag, though, for speeding. So now 4 drivers already in this race have had to come down for some type of repairs or black flag issues as this night has gone on. So this is getting an intriguing layer of storylines. Speaking of intriguingness, Jeff Xion has a pass done near contact with the wall in the backdrop before Isaiah Dupree, meanwhile.
And I think that's going to be a theme of tonight. Is small mistakes and small misjudgments can get you very, very close to these safer barriers here, Justin. Because again, the surface doesn't have a lot of grip. The cars don't have a lot of downforce.
Trouble, turn 1. Sam Crow hard into the wall of the pit exit. No caution, we stay green. The 70 toes it.
That was a big incident there for Sam Crow. We'll have to get a replay of that. But yeah, as I was saying, it's just these walls are super, super close. The track itself isn't very wide, especially down the straights. It almost narrows up a little bit, you find, when you're running it. And yeah, it's going to be very difficult for these drivers to keep it out of the wall for 131 laps here.
Especially if you get peeled off the top in some circumstances, it seems. Here's a look at the replay. Wow.
Yeah, so that was Sam Crow getting the... basically, he snagged his left front tire on that apron and the transition of the apron. And when he did it, it was right at sort of the apex of the D shape, right by the start-finish line, and it just spun him around and straight into that inside wall there. And that's probably going to be day done for him.
Lucky to also not bounce up the track in that circumstance. This battle for 20th is still continuing to be very wild. Dupree taking advantage of Samuel Ryman there. Jim Herrick not able to make the move. Now a big checkup for Jeff Xion up this straightaway. Everyone trying to leapfrog everybody here. And oh, by the way, we have an estimated pit window coming up, but that could be a major difference marker here today because it was estimated to be about 54 laps. However, with the amount of off-throttle time here today, that could stretch even further, Andrew.
Yeah, it can absolutely stretch further, but the other thing to keep in mind with that, Justin, is 54 plus 54. I'm a commentator, so don't trust my math, but that's 108. And then we have about another half a stint, so that's 2.5 stints. So there's a wide open pit window here. We could essentially see cars come down pit road now, maybe get new tires, and yes, they would put themselves in the danger zone, but they could also use some pit strategy to really launch themselves up the field here.
And here's the major thing too. With this track today, Race Control did rule that drivers have to use the access road for green flag pit stops. Under caution, they can turn off turn 4. The reason being, technically with the stock cars, you can come off turn 4. But you have to use the access road for today's race.
Yeah, we had several tests here in the Lionheart series, and it was just too sketchy getting off because of basically how sharp that turn is that you see going onto the pit lane there. It's already very difficult just to get on the pit lane from the access road, and then coming down from that banking, you already saw how treacherous it was with Sam Crow. So all of those factors together, it was decided for the safety of all the drivers here in terms of preserving races and preventing incidents that they would all use the access road under green.
Meanwhile, Dupree in this battle for 20th, holding on to the spot, still trading positions like decks of cards, flipping around here. And Dupree, quietly just trying to mind his business here, has gained many of these spots and nearly squiggles to the wall.
Yeah, Dupree has been on the move so far here today, but he has taken a fair bit of risk doing so. And and we have a big incident in turn 1. Craig Forsyth.
And Trevor Malone is also in it. Some of your championship contenders. Significant damage for our first caution flag of the race. So there goes the strategy. Michael Goodman also involved.
Yeah, some big names there involved in that wreck, and it was turn 4, not turn 1. I miscalled that there, but That's going to put a big damper on a number of championship runs there. Really big names involved in that wreck.
Andrew Wood also got airtime in that, and I don't think Wagner realizes he doesn't have to take the access road under caution. But under caution here for the first time either way, after some big incident collisions in 3 and 4. And pit stops underway for the first time today, and that simplifies the strategy. It's a one-stopper to the end, so there goes that early stop.
Yeah, but this is on the early side of the window here, Justin. We're looking at roughly 85 laps or so to go here, if my math is correct. So it does mean that some drivers will have a little bit of decisions to play with here in terms of when their next stop will come. But as you say, much of the strategy out the window, pretty much everyone on pit road here.
Matt Wagner first off. Second off is Chris Fowler. Third is Matt Taylor, who is on the charge. Luis Gonzalez Nunez, Mike Rigney, the top 5. Give credit to Gabe Wood, who's still in 7th after the pit window here under caution. But let's take a look at the replay. 4 cars involved.
And it looks like Goodman, he just pushed up the track coming through turn 3 there. Gets into the back of Craig Forsyth. Trevor Malone and Andrew Wood just nowhere to go there. And big damage there, especially for Trevor Malone and Craig Forsyth. Goodman, it looks like might have got away with it. We'll have to see if Andrew Wood, what kind of damage he had, but certainly Forsyth and Malone, big damage.
Goodman does have side pod damage for that, but big point implications. Trevor Malone 4th in the standings entering tonight. Craig Forsyth 5th in the standings, and already 1 start less. So there is 1 less drop in theory to think about long term. There is 1 wave around. Will Gibson took your strategy advice. And we got the caution flag to come out when that happens. So Gibson will take the wave to get the lap back in this. Let's take a look from behind this.
And you can just see how as soon as the one car spins, all of the cars sort of go up the track. So if you're on that high side, you're basically trapped, and that's what happened with Trevor Malone. And I do want to mention Andrew Wood has disconnected, so terminal damage for Wood as well. So that's your rookie, one of your rookie points leaders out of the race as well.
6th in the overall standings as well. An absolute shakeup as a result here, and a big opportunity to build a cushion for Wagner, Taylor, and Branch, you'd have to think here. 27 points separated those 3. Just 5 points between Branch and Malone before tonight. That may grow now.
Yeah, it absolutely will. And so far, Matt Wagner is doing everything that he needs to do to maximize the gain that he can potentially get here. As you mentioned, his real competition now in that top 5, Joe Branch, he's all the way down in 9th place right now. Just another solid run for Branch, and this is what we've seen from him so many times this year. Is he isn't necessarily going to win every race, but he is in that top 10 conversation every single time, and that's what's allowed him to be in the race with Matt Wagner. But it's hard to fight for a championship when the championship leader is dominating the race the way Matt Wagner is here tonight.
So 1 to go signal. Jim Herrick amongst those at the tail end should be worth noting. Kristen Jasper also had to make wing changes throughout that run. Wing change as well for Michael Goodman. Dupree, remember that progression forward. That's gone backwards with wing changes. And Soto also had to make a wing change. So lots of wings having to be replaced here. With how many close calls we've got in here, does the trend continue with 83 to go at Nashville?
I think it certainly has the opportunity to. It'll get a little bit more spread out because this is a single file start, so there will be a little bit more separation, but I expect it to accordion back up fairly quickly here because everyone's on new tires. The track is slightly cooler, and everyone's looking to make a move here on this restart.
Matt Wagner in control of the field still. Chris Fowler, Matt Taylor, Luis Gonzalez Nunez, Mike Rigney, Vern Hawkins III, Gabe Wood, Paul Jenkins, your top 8. Barney with the green flag in hand. Green flag's back out. We're racing again from Nashville. No major tire spin throughout the pack as Wagner tries to build a buffer. Matt Taylor looks to try and set his sights on the top 2. Has to gain 4/10 to get up to Fowler.
And Fowler had an excellent start there, Justin. He's right on the back of Matt Wagner, and that's what he needed to do here, is really hound Matt Wagner for these first little bit and take advantage of those fresh tires. It gets increasingly hard for this car in second place to pass as the run goes on, but you might have a small window here at the beginning if you're Chris Fowler. So it doesn't surprise me that he's pushing as hard as he is to try and catch Matt Wagner at the front. But meanwhile, it's been a much more sedate start to this stint compared to that first restart, or that first start of the race there.
Absolutely has so far for the time being. You see some of the battling, though, starting to pick up in the heart of the pack. Amongst those in it, Sanders battling with the factory back cars. And before the caution flag, Nick DeGroot and Jacob Oster were working together to calmly and efficiently slowly make their way through the pack, so whatever they've been doing is working.
Yes, it has been, and that's good to see from the factory back drivers, because that's one of the things that's sort of been missing a little bit from the factory back stables this year. Is last year we just saw them work so well together. This year they've seemed a little bit out of sync, but it's good to see, at least if you're a factory back supporter, Oster and DeGroot really working well together, and it's a good sign for the second half of this season.
Technical issues. Munoz trouble. Joe Branch involved with Jenkins. Tony Shelton drives right into it. There go the factory back cars. Ryan Eric King is in it. An air slide down to the grass. And a big one strikes down the front straightaway with several of your championship contenders.
Yeah, that was another big incident there, and it just looked like 2 cars coming into one, coming out of 4 there. Joe Branch, I believe, was one of the drivers who started that, and big incident that collected a lot of drivers. The problem is when an incident like that happens right there, it basically happens in front of the field. Yeah, and you can see Jenkins and Branch, and then Jenkins comes down a little bit, Branch comes up a little bit, Shaw and Branch's teammate nowhere to go. So that's all all the power slide drivers out at once. Nick DeGroot nowhere to go. So that's a bunch of big names there all out of the race all at once.
Of note, Oster just barely got through there, you seen, and everyone's trying to catch up to the iRacing pace car still and sort themselves out at the top of the caution where they are position-wise. And just like that, the championship contenders are starting to really fall back. In fact, a majority of your top 10 is now out of the race in terms of the overall Drivers' Championship, as well as nearly half, if not half, your drivers in the top 15 in points.
Yeah, this has been chaos and carnage for the championship contenders, but the one championship contender that hasn't been affected so far, Matt Wagner at the front of this field, doing a great job, and this is going to create a lot of separation between himself and the rest of the championship chase.
So to roughly add that up, that is Jenkins, King, DeGroot with significant damage, Joe Branch to make it 4, 5 plus involved in that incident. And several taking the chance to get damage repairs done indoor, taking the chance to top off. Michael Goodman with that side pod damage. James Watson to the back. Jim Herrick to the back as well with that. But Matt Wagner, your race leader with 76 laps to go, has led them all so far, but it's not been an easy 54 laps led coming up to 55 here, because the pressure has been on several times from Chris Fowler, who's gone in within a few tenths a couple times. Matt Taylor is coming in quick. And don't forget about Luis Gonzalez-Nunez, who is still quietly running with a ton of momentum the past couple weeks.
Yeah, Luis Gonzalez-Nunez is finally starting to put together solid finishes and solid runs here, and you can see that the speed that he's always flashed at times is really coming into focus here. But here we are on board with the 4 car, and you can see just how little choice Ryan Eric King had there in terms of the where he could put that car. There was cars going high, cars going low, and eventually there's just a wall because there's nowhere else to go.
So at this mark, how do you get the track position? Because it's Intriguing how this is going. It's difficult in the traffic we've seen. We talked about how bad it can get into traffic in some cases. A lot of squirrely cars in this field tonight.
Yeah, it's going to require some creativity here, I think. One of the things this has done is it has allowed a number of drivers to come down pit lane towards the back of the field and get fresh tires, and that is going to change things up just a little bit. I think it's going to allow them to go a little bit further on this stint, and I think that you have to make some kind of bold call here to figure out a way to get in front of Matt Wagner. If you're Chris Fowler, it's all about being aggressive on the restart. If you're towards the back of the field, it's a bold strategy call.
More technical issues. Vern Hawkins III out of the race. Was inside the top 10 before the issue. That brings us to 24 in the lead lap. Here is Tony Schauman's look.
And just heartbreaking for Schauman because he really had nowhere to go, just an innocent bystander there. And you could just see he was probably hoping that both cars stayed up the track. Unfortunately, came down right in front of him.
One to go until the restart here at Nashville Superspeedway. And keep in mind, this is a facility that did not seek any sanctioned events after 2012, for 2012 onward, after it shuttered itself in August 2011. And at one point, it was hinted this track could be up for sale before its return back to operation for 2021.
Yeah, and it is a really nice facility here. It looks like a normal super speedway, but the fact that it's just that little bit smaller, it does make it sort of a unique track here in America and in the world, really. And it is nice to see it going back again.
It's nice to see this track in operation here. A very unique track. And that's the major thing, the uniqueness of some circuits that can come into play. It did host some open wheel competition. Sam Hornish Jr., after all, does have the track record from 2003. But the green flag, meanwhile, is ready to go. 74 laps to go. Good launch from Wagner. Great launch from Fowler. Taylor also with a good launch. And now things get ready for some battling. Samuel Ryman amongst those looking to battle, with Brian Beard amongst the heart of the pack.
We got some aggressive lane changes going on there. George Anzaldo looking to make some moves here on the start, trying to get around Ryman and Brian Beard on the high side. So this is where the action is. You can see Ryman nearly hooked a wheel there on the inside there through turn 1 and 2. And this is the aggression that we're talking about on these restarts, because this is when all the moves are going to happen. The cars are all really still packed up together. So everyone is going to be at their most aggressives here, and this is why at this track, more than many tracks, cautions really do breed cautions.
Ryman near contact with Dakota DeMay, trying to go a little deeper into the corner. Again, the battle for 16th you're looking towards. This pack is already losing a bit of ground, 12th on back to 11th. Ryman is struggling all of a sudden. Ryman again loses the bottom, and Ryman dropping back to 17th now.
Yeah, and once you lose your rhythm at a track like this, it's very hard to get your momentum back and get back into the same rhythm that you were in. And when you're lifting as much as you do here, rhythm is very, very important to have. So I'm sure that Ryman is just looking to get a little bit quieted down and just settle down and try and find some open track here to just get back into the right headspace to put together some solid laps.
2 and 3 wide, still at the back of the pack. Of note, Chris Fowler's been reeled in by Matt Taylor, who can't figure out where to go around. And that's the tough thing now. With the lights fully on here, getting to full darkness, being able to adapt to make these passes, something these drivers have to have learned by now if they want to contend here.
Yeah, absolutely. You need to figure out how to make those passes early on, so that when you need to make them late, you're on your toes and you know what you're doing. And speaking of which, here comes Matt Taylor on the inside of Chris Fowler. Fowler's trying to hang tough here, but Matt Taylor has the preferred line. Will he be able to make it stick? It looks like so far Fowler's hanging tough, but Taylor really serving notice on Fowler that he wants that P2 very soon here.
Especially with how big the runs have been getting down the back straightaway. That time, Taylor electing to go and lift. Save a little bit more when it comes to the run to build it up for here. Because if you time up turn 4 right, you see the boost. Taylor's tried the top 2 times now.
Yeah, with the shape of that front stretch being that almost dogleg style front straightaway, you really do get a long run there if you're the car, especially if you're the car on the high side. You can keep it wound up and really get that good run here, as Matt Taylor is trying to do. The tricky thing is that Fowler is now sticking to that inside line, and he just is able to get through the corners better than Taylor at this point, and he's able to get up to that high side coming on the exit, and it's just not allowing Taylor to really make the move, as Luis Gonzalez Nunez nearly spun coming out of 2, but Taylor finally makes the move on Chris Fowler through 3 and 4 there.
Had to lick the stamp, sent it, Fowler gave the space on back, and now it becomes the question, can Taylor do anything to pass by Matt Wagner? Nunez, after his bobble and near spin you mentioned, is about 7 car lengths back of all this. The top 8 have broken away by more than a second as well, from Ron Hacker on back in the pack.
And crucially, a couple of big names towards the back of this pack, Jacob Oster and Gavin Sanders, 7th and 8th in this leading pack, and that's exactly where both of them need to be. Another strong run from Jacob Oster, and this is a great run going from Gavin Sanders as well.
Looking now at what's going on in the heart of the field still. A lot of shuffling here at Nashville Super Speedway. And you see Munstos, Munoz and company looking to sort themselves in the heart of this field. Hugo Gallas from 34th, though, is up to 16th, plus 18 tonight.
It goes to show you what keeping your nose clean and making some savvy pit calls can do. Gallas has been doing a real good job here so far. Just nice, consistent running. Hasn't put a wheel wrong so far, and that's really what you need to do at a track like this, where so many people are making so many mistakes here tonight.
Wagner starting to try and check out, by the way. It's worth noting up towards the front. You see how things can be tricky in the heart of this pack currently. Dupree is also back in this mix as well, worth noting. So looking to try and see how things dart around. And remember, 25 laps into the run, this is amongst this grouping you expected, where being able to save would be critical in some cases, as well as finding passes like this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or Dupree can find the wall.
That was suboptimal there from Isaiah Dupree, getting very, very high. And that's one of the dangers of trying to run the high line here is in most cases when you run a high line, you try and really sort of aim for the middle of the corner. Here you still have to dive down a fair bit to make the high line work. It's really sort of a low lane and a middle lane, because the high line will so easily put you right towards that safer barrier there.
Dean Mall, remember him moving through the pack, is the second overall biggest mover. 21 spots for the 23 car. What a charge ahead for Dean Mall. One-time race winner this season. Couple wins to his repertoire in the Speedway Series.
Absolutely, and that's one of the things that you always want to pay attention to in a race like this, is who are the drivers who can really make those moves happen, and Dean Mall certainly has been one of them so far in this race. Up as far as he is, Scott Rankin right in front of him, also doing very well, 32nd to 9th. So those two have really moved well through the pack together.
And Rankin, remember, is amongst the EOL drivers, so that's even further back technically from the grid slot. But as you see Ron Hacker get shuffled back, coming up now, 57 laps to go. Halfway through this fuel run, it's Matt Wagner up at the front, Matt Taylor, Chris Fowler, Luis Gonzalez Nunez, Mike Rigney, the top 5. Here on Race Spot, you're watching the GRAAFix Esports, Nashville 175, presented by ButtKicker.
With the ButtKicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. ButtKicker, the future is feeling.
Welcome back to Nashville Super Speedway for coverage of the GRAAFix Esports Nashville 175 presented by ButtKicker, where it's Matt Wagner in control of the field still here in Lebanon, Tennessee. Justin Prince, Andrew Kinsella with you with Tower Maxon in the producer's seat for tonight's action. As the action continues on with several storylines to talk about, under 50 laps to go, Wagner has led all the laps so far, but for how long is the question. As well, drivers like Gabe Wood continue to impress, as well as Gavin Sanders and Jacob Oster, who are in the mix for the battle for fifth with Mike Rigney.
Yeah, some very impressive drives being put on here today. As you mentioned, Rigney, another one who we haven't talked about, but he's just been solidly in this nice top 5 position all day. And Scott Rankin, he is not only was he able to get around the likes of Dean Mall, as actually Dean Mall, now that we say that, Dean Mall going backwards, looks like he might have brushed the wall here, Justin.
He was in the midst of a battle for position and got a second rub as well, believe. He did rub the wall coming out of turn 4, then got a second rub from George Anzotto. Side pod damage you just seen for a moment there with Dean Mall.
Yeah, so that is a real shame for Dean Mall because he was having a great run. We were talking about it just a little bit before we went to our break there, and he was having such a good run, and side pod damage at a place like this, that's gonna hurt Dean Mall. As he gets in the car with that kind of damage, it's just going to get progressively worse and worse. So I think Dean Mall very quickly here is going to have to take this car onto pit lane.
We'll see if he elects to duck on down. George Anzotto is about halfway through the run. George Anzotto ducking down with Dean Mall, and there's that access road coming into play here. As well as that tight turn to get to the yellow cone. Lots of tire lockups expected to get to the speed limit of 45 miles per hour. Also quietly doing well in this one, Brian Beard, who's surviving after getting, well, nearly spun around in front of the pack and is surviving left side pod damage in this.
Yeah, the left side pod damage, not quite as detrimental as the right side because it does sort of create some drag on that left side that allows you to turn, but it's certainly not doing him any favors. But it's been a nice drive apart from that one moment for Brian Beard, as you say, and he's starting to work over Ron Hacker just a little bit here in a quest for the top 10 position here.
Meanwhile, Chris Fowler has fallen back to the clutches of Luis Gonzalez Nunez. Chris Fowler dropping back and quickly from Taylor as well here. Fowler started off well, just couldn't close the 3/10 gap to Wagner. Now has seemingly started to drop back in the nighttime.
Yeah, I think Fowler needs to adapt just a little bit to these conditions right now, and he could certainly be He could certainly be just fuel saving just a little bit, trying to figure out a way to get around the two drivers in front of him. And one other thing to note here, Justin, is Matt Wagner starting to get into a little bit of traffic here.
Matt Wagner indeed dealing with traffic right now, moving up towards him. Crane Carter. Carter also going to be a factor in the battle we see on screen in just a moment or so. That gap for the race lead is down to under half a second. But for Matt Wagner should say, he's also your Moser Racing driver profile for today. 25 starts in this series, just one victory surprisingly so far, but 8 top 10s and 7 top 5s. He's also picked up a couple poles this season. That win came in Atlanta earlier this season, and he's been able to springboard from that qualifying speed this year, as well as that victory to be the points leader.
Yeah, it is surprising to see that one win stat for Matt Wagner, because he's been so strong at so many tracks, and there were a few races, certainly early on in the season, where he just dominated the entire race, and then fuel strategy just caught him out a couple of times there, or else he would have several wins on this season. Meanwhile, we've got a nice little battle going on here. That's Jeff Xiong and Ron Hacker. Hacker fighting back after Xiong passed him about 15 or so laps ago. It looks like Hacker's tires are starting to pick back up. Maybe Xiong rode his tires off just a little bit, but Hacker's starting to show some speed in this second half of the run.
Hacker right now running 24.9s. Pit stops underway for the race leaders here, Rain, but the caution is out. Trouble. It's Will Gibson. And another car stopped at the bottom. That is indeed Gibson, in fact. Same color scheme as Georgian's Auto tonight, but the 05 is your caution either way.
And Gibson just gets a little bit low through turn 2 there, hits the inside lane.
Oh, somebody hit
that
him.
Was Sam Ryman, I believe. Justin got collected in that on the exit of 2.
Believe you're right. That was Ryman, right side pod. And that comes just before some of your top drivers were ready to pit. So this takes the green flag stops out of the equation. It all comes down to the rest of this run. Here is Ryman's look.
Just nowhere for Sam Ryman to go there. He got some favorable net code on the front wing, but it does look like he got some side pod damage out of the deal there, and just unfortunate there, because when Gibson went so hard into the wall, he basically catapulted straight back across, and yeah, nowhere to go for Ryman. But this is a blessing for everyone of those leaders who are about to come down pit road, because now they can all do their stops under caution here. Everyone's back once again on that same level playing field here. So definitely a blessing for all of those drivers about to come down pit lane.
Inside the fuel window as well, one driver staying out is Paul Jenkins. Everybody else on the lead lap is in here. So on to the Jacks goes Wagner and company, who will win the race off the pit lane. Taylor 8.2 seconds. Wagner still wins the race. Taylor holds on to second off the line. Fowler, Nunez, and then Rigney, the top 5. Sanders jumping past a couple, but Jacob Oster jumping at just a very edge, rather staying behind Gabe Wood off the cone.
Yeah, so I don't think that Paul Jenkins is going to stay out here, but you never know with Jenkins, because he does sometimes do some interesting fuel strategies, but generally speaking, you would expect him to come down pit lane here, even if he wants to extend it just a little bit, because you have to think he can make it on here on fuel from here.
Absolutely, you can. Keep in mind, Paul Jenkins does have significant damage to the front wing still. To the left front wing, in fact, for this run. And is not ducking in currently. We'll see if that's ducking down, coming to the 1 to green. Vern Hawkins, the third amongst the wave rounds, with Big Joe Hassert also doing the same here. Still lights on top of the iRacing pace car, about 2 laps to go until the restart. So this is going to get intriguing if he stays out here, because there is some traffic between them. A significant amount of traffic. Gotso, Maul, Onzaldo, Ryman are all separating them and Jenkins. Despite the damage for the 35, there is a buffer here if he chooses to try and roll the dice.
Yeah, it's going to get very intriguing if Jenkins tries to stay out here. I honestly don't understand what the strategy would be if he does, but because certainly the 4 cars in between him and the leaders won't allow him to stay up there for long. But yeah, I mean, if he gets a few more cautions, maybe, but I don't think that he can make it from where he stopped before.
He did get the lead lap, so that might be the play there.
Yeah, that's true. Every bonus point does count in this league. You do get a bonus point for leading a lap, so that could be it. We'll have to see. This will be the telling sign. Will he turn down?
Oh.
No, he is staying out.
Ryman, in turn, is elected to come back down to the pit lane, so that removes 1 car from the equation. Just 1 car, in fact, now that buffer. George Anzotto, that 1 driver. Lights out on top of the iRacing pace car, and oh boy, a driver with left front wing damage. Paul Jenkins leads the field. 1 lap car separating them between everybody else who is good to go on fuel.
Yeah, so I'm not quite sure what Paul Jenkins is thinking here, particularly with a damaged car. So George Anzaldo, he's going to be very, very keen to get by Jenkins and put as much space as he can between himself and Matt Wagner. So if another caution comes out, then at least George Anzaldo is going to be able to make up his lap. But to me, I think Jenkins is just going to be a sitting duck here, and he's going to get swallowed up pretty quickly.
Clouds really starting to draw over the racetrack now. It is 8 p.m. in sim time, mind you, with the track temperature starting to decrease a bit more for the concrete. But tensions about to rise, possibly. Jenkins, your first non-leader that is not Matt Wagner, or rather your first leader that wasn't Matt Wagner, or isn't Matt Wagner. Regardless, 34 to go. Green flag is out, back it away. And a good launch and a clean launch for the top runners. Now it becomes the question, how long can Jenkins hold on? 40 laps, the difference on strategy.
Yeah, you would think that he can only stay out there for a very short period of time. The question is, who is going to be the one to actually make the pass on him? Will it be Anzaldo getting his lap back, or will it be Matt Wagner? Anzaldo's already looking towards that inside of Paul Jenkins here into 1.
Looking to get a lap back. He is the last car at the end of the lead lap now. For how long is the question, because here comes Matt Wagner. Wagner goes to the bottom. Jenkins gives the space. Matt Wagner back to the point.
Matt Wagner's at the point, but he's not the first car in line, and that's going to be very important here as Matt Taylor splits between Paul Jenkins and Matt Wagner there, and he is looking very racy here. That dirty air that Matt Wagner is getting for the first time in this race, that could be the difference, and it could be what allows Matt Taylor to really get a run and potentially dethrone Matt Wagner from the top of this field.
Wagner up the track. Here comes Taylor. Taylor getting the boost, getting the tow from Anzaldo. Dead even nearly into 1. Now dirty air for Taylor. Wagner with the clean air coming off the corner. Tries to keep it side by side, does. He gets the draft back from Anzaldo as Anzaldo plays the lines.
And Anzaldo is trying to use both lanes here, so to speak, and he's so far been able to give some help here to Matt Taylor, potentially in the fight with Matt Wagner, but Wagner's doing a tremendous job staying around that outside. But right now, Taylor able to come up in front of Matt Wagner. This is huge in the battle for this race win.
Wagner wants that spot back, though. Hits the apron, pushes up the track. Taylor gets the boost, near contact. Taylor leads it at the line.
And here comes Fowler here, Justin. He is trying to insert himself into this battle as well. He is hungry to take advantage here, and it looks like Matt Wagner, he spins!
Wagner loops it to the inside. No caution, we stay green. Matt Wagner, the points leader, has crashed it. Fowler and Taylor, the teammates, now up at the front.
Oh my, Justin, I can't believe what we've just seen there. Matt Wagner loses it off of turn 2, and it's exactly what we saw early in the race with a lot of the drivers having to figure out how much wheel they can really put into those cars on these corner exits here. Matt Wagner, in that case, he just put in too much wheel, loses it on the exit of 2. He is out of this race, and suddenly that huge advantage he was about to get in that championship, gone.
And the championship flipped upside down with this hard hit to the inside wall, loose underneath Fowler. And now Matt Taylor looks to try and run away with 26 to go. Would be a huge victory for Matt Taylor, which could put him into the points lead for the halfway point of the season, looking for win 3.
Yeah, absolutely. This is now in Matt Taylor's wheelhouse right here, and he's got his teammate right behind him, in fact, that will help him as well. So really good sign here for the 8-car Matt Taylor. But meanwhile, Luis Gonzalez Nunez, he's now worked his way into a podium, and Gavin Sanders up to 4th position, and he's right on the back of Luis Gonzalez Nunez here.
What a run for Sanders. We've seen some good speed from the 10-car for the past few weeks. The Canadian has had a top 5 and 2 top 10s this season. Just looking to rise up through the championship standings. Has the chance at another run here to the inside. 24 to go this time. Bit too squirrely. Hits the apron as well for good suiting.
Yeah, just not the right opportunity for Sanders, but he's showing a lot of speed here tonight, Justin. I reckon that he has got a few more stabs at this before this race is over, and I don't think that we've seen the last of this battle between Nunez and Sanders.
I don't think so either, with how things could fray out here and battle out here. 23 laps to go. Big run for Sanders from Team Race First Arctic. And looking to try and get to the inside of turn 1. Yes, indeed. Nunez gives the space. Sanders tries it. Squeeze on back.
Yeah, Sanders just needs some clean air help right now, I think. And unfortunately for him, Fowler is running that low line through the corners, and it's just not letting Sanders really get the run that he needs through turns 1 and 2, but he's doing a tremendous job through 3 and 4. This time he's a little bit further alongside Luis Gonzalez Nunez. He might just be able to slide up here.
Sanders looks to clear, is clear. Now here comes Nunez. Nunez can't get to the inside this time, so now it's Sanders inside the top 3. Meanwhile, the race leaders have caught right up to Enzoto, so now lap traffic a huge factor.
And this is going to be a very important point for the rest of this race, is what happens with George Anzaldo, because he's going to want to do everything he possibly can if a caution comes out to be back on the lead lap. But at the same time, right now, now that Taylor's gotten around Anzaldo, Fowler needs to follow him. So does Sanders, so does Nunez. So there's going to get, I think, some desperation in here to make these passes happen.
Paul Jenkins, by the way, has pit, so he couldn't make it to the end, didn't get the caution he was looking for. Sanders, meanwhile, is inside of the traffic, but Taylor, he's trying to check out with all this. Up by 7/10. Here's a look at the battle with Sanders, now with the lap traffic. Nunez trying to get the run back for that 3rd position. Can't get to the inside, but can get to the inside of the lap car.
Yeah, so your top 4 now all have made their way around George Anzaldo, and that's going to be very important, that now all of these drivers in the clean air, in the clean running, but so important, Matt Taylor, especially with the clean air, he is checking out just a little bit from Chris Fowler right now.
Keep in mind, Gabe Wood also in the mix, as well as Jacob Oster in this train. So 7 cars separated by 3 seconds or so, with 17 to go this time by. Can Matt Taylor hold on in the clean air is the huge question. Fowler and Sanders are closing again.
And as the night descends here on Nashville, the track will get slightly cooler, and each degree that it gets cooler, it's going to help the tires hold on that much more, and it's going to give the drivers that much more grip. So it's going to make running in dirty air that much easier, and basically that's all that Fowler and Sanders and Nunez are hoping for, is that it gets easy enough that they can really close up on the back of that number 8 car, Matt Taylor, and have one more shot at it. But the laps are winding down here, Justin. 15 to go by my count, and it's going to be, I think, very difficult to get all the way back up to Taylor.
And here's the tough thing. You see that lap traffic ahead? That's Paul Jenkins, who completed a pit stop. They may get another car possibly to deal with too, or at least some will, and Joe Hassard, who's completed service, see to the left side of the track. So that clean air, it's going away, possibly, depending on what Jenkins is able to do. If Jenkins is quick on the fresher tires, Taylor will be okay-ish. Not so much if he starts to lose time to the leaders. Last time by, he picked up a 10th.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the crunch time for Matt Taylor. Is he needs to make sure that he treats this lap car the best way possible, because it does start to get dirty air fairly far back from the car in front. So you have to be so careful as you're transitioning from that clean air running to the dirty air running, that you don't make a mistake, that you don't push wide and push into the wall. As we've seen a number of drivers do today. But meanwhile, the battle right now, Gavin Sanders, he's really closed up onto the back of Chris Fowler, and you can see on screen that he is pushing for all he is worth. But interestingly enough, Big Joe Hassard on the fresh tires, he's now trying to make some moves here, and he might just disrupt this battle.
He's already disrupted the flow for Nunez, and there's a bit of a breakup now between Nunez and Rigney. See how the 11 plays this. He'll play it very hard into the corner to gain a car length, and now could become the cork in the bottle for second and third.
And this is not what Sanders wants to see in his mirror, is a faster car coming up and looking to get around him, because this battle, if you're Sanders, you need to be focused forward, and when you have a car approaching like that, you can't help but focus on the car behind you as well. So if I'm Sanders, I'm trying to do everything I can to keep Joe Hassard behind me, because you can't lose any touch with Chris Fowler at this point.
Still within a couple of car lengths of Fowler for reference, but Fowler's losing more so touch to Matt Taylor currently. Now 9/10 back, and they have reached Samuel Ryman. Ryman now could become a factor as well in the mix of things. Down to the final 10 laps, coming to 9 to go here from Nashville. Sanders looking to be on the charge for second. Still can't get close enough to Fowler to make the move yet.
The laps are clicking away, and there's quickly running out of time for Gavin Sanders. Joe Hassard settled down behind him. I think the pressure might be off for Sanders right now, but at the same time, the pressure is still on for Chris Fowler, as Sanders does everything he possibly can, and it's going to all come down, I think, to how they catch the traffic that's about to be in front of them, especially with Sam Ryman. Will it help Fowler, or will it help Sanders here?
There's the traffic of Ryman moving towards the middle of the track. Matt Taylor quickly trying to make work of it, and does. Nice and easy. Samuel Ryman doesn't cost Taylor any time there. In fact, Taylor gained time on that exit. As Fowler hits the apron, Fowler slides up the track. Here comes Sanders in the battle for second.
This could be the one opening that Sanders needs. The question is, will he be able to complete the pass here? He's able to keep it on the outside here. That's a really good run out of the corner here. I think he's got it.
He does. Sanders is clear, takes advantage of the mistake from Fowler. Fowler again nearly hitting the apron. Fowler really struggling with this aero wash now off the back end of Ryman, as now Ryman moves up to the top.
Ryman safely out of the way, nice and courteous there from Sam. But Gavin Sanders, what a move that was. He took advantage of the one mistake that Chris Fowler made, and he is scampering off into the distance now. I think that Taylor might be a little bit too far, but what a drive from this 10 car. This is some really nice driving, really good performance, and this is what we were hoping for when Gavin Sanders joined this series.
Down to the final 5 laps. Taylor, Sanders, Fowler, Nunez, the top 4. Rigney trying to hold off Gabe Wood for a top 5. But for Matt Taylor, he had to work for it. From 8th starting position, got a little bit of luck as well to mix into it. Now for the GRAAFix LC MadWorks machine, looking to bring this car home while catching Paul Jenkins again as traffic.
I think that it should still be okay for Matt Taylor, though. What he's going to be able to do is draft off of Jenkins, and Jenkins should be slow enough and courteous enough to be able to just sort of slide out of Matt Taylor's way, but right now he's got a 1.2 second gap on that 10 car of Gavin Sanders, and I don't see that disappearing in the next 3 laps.
And we're past the point of no return, meaning next flag ends the race. 2.5 laps to go, 1 second the buffer, 1.1 seconds to be precise. Sanders trying to find any way possible to close into the number 8 machine with 2 laps to go.
There's almost nothing you can do if you're Gavin Sanders except for hope for a mistake from Matt Taylor, and we both know that hoping for a mistake from Matt Taylor is hoping for something that's nearly impossible. He has been so good this season and really good at this stage of the race, just closing out a nice solid run once again here for Matt Taylor, coming to the white flag here, and just doing a great job.
Final time around for the GRAAFix Esports Nashville 175 presented by ButtKicker. Matt Taylor had to work for this position all night long, but the man who has Hero on his car rises up to the challenge. His team organization had a lot of shuffling the past few weeks, and now he'll drive that organization to its first victory since. Matt Taylor wins at Nashville. He wins the GRAAFix Esports Nashville 175 presented by ButtKicker. And a huge victory for Matt Taylor, his 3rd on the season. And this likely puts him in the points lead to start the second half of the season coming into a Triple Crown race.
Yeah, you talk about strong runs and you talk about momentum, and this is the perfect timing for Matt Taylor to really take that momentum to the next level. Going into Indianapolis next week, it's so important to arrive there feeling confident, and there's no one in this field that's going to be more confident than Matt Taylor after the drive that he put on today. What a race for Matt Taylor, and then great result from your second place runner, Gavin Sanders. Chris Fowler finally brings one home in one piece, and what do you know, he gets a top 3 out of it. Nice job from Chris. And then Nunez and Rigney rounding out your top 5. Rigney with a really solid run, and Nunez again demonstrating that consistency that was missing so much before. He's demonstrating that he's really starting to pick that up, and just a nice solid run for Nunez as well.
Celebration time underway for Matt Taylor in what was an exciting race and a wild one for many moments here at Nashville. Plenty to talk about for tonight's post-race coverage, but let's take a chance to look at your unofficial race results presented by SimRace 24/7. Taylor wins by 0.8 of a second over Gavin Sanders, with Chris Fowler making it a 1-3 for GRAAFix LC MadWorks. Luis Gonzalez Nunez keeps up the momentum with a 4th-place run. Mike Rigney rounds out the top 5. Gabriel Wood in 6th with Jacob Oster, Ron Hacker, Brian Beard, and Jeff Sheehan, your top 10. 11th spot tonight goes to Hugo Gallas, 9.7 seconds back. Dakota DeMade and Kristen Jasper, 12th and 13th. Isaiah Dupree gained some positions late in for NLR Sim Racing for 14th. Watson, Herrick, Goodman, the top 17 in your lead lap finishers. George Enzotto finishes 1 lap down in 18th over Paul Jenkins, with Big Joe Hasser rounding out the top 20, also getting the fastest lap, give him credit, in the late stages. 21st spot tonight goes the direction of one Samuel Ryman, 2 laps down. Creighton Carter, 22nd. Gary Gonzo, Vern Hawkins III, Scott Rankin, Matt Wagner, Dean Mall, Will Gibson, Gonzalo Munoz, and Tony Schowen, the top 30. And the rest of your starters go the way of Nick DeGroot, Ryan King, Joe Branch, Craig Forsyth, Trevor Malone, Andrew Wood, and Sam Crow here from Nashville. And that brings us into our post-race coverage presented by HyperX, because the Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperx.com. Let's dive straight into HyperX Victory Lane, where Matt Taylor is now standing by and celebrating a big victory for his organization. After the restructuring a couple weeks ago, Taylor gets the job done here tonight. Matt, you are the winner tonight. Your 3rd victory on the trot, possibly the points leader. How are you feeling after this wild night?
That was fun. That was really hard work. Just a really difficult setup on a tough track, and figuring out the tires and where you needed to place the car, and I ended up just kind of finding something different that worked for me.
Talk us through the battle with Matt Wagner for the race lead in the midst of that traffic.
Yeah, I felt like the line I was running was really letting me set up runs, and he got checked up just a little bit, and it was the first time he'd really been in dirty air all night, and it seemed like he really struggled dealing with that, and I was able to get a really good run on him. And once I got clear, I saw he spun off coming out of 2, which is too bad because he had really good pace, but I was able to clear out from there.
But a huge victory either way for the point standings, because next time out, it's a Triple Crown race in a week and a half time. How's the preparation for Indianapolis Motor Speedway going?
I think we'll be in good shape. We'll see how the setup feels, and it's obviously going to be a little bit different. We've got the Retro Series at Indy on Thursday, so jumping back and forth between these different cars is fun, and I'm really glad we got all 3 team cars in the top 10 tonight, and got Chris on the podium.
Well, congratulations on visiting HyperX Victory Lane tonight here in Nashville. A big victory for you.
Thank you, and I want to give a shout out to Tyler Graaf and GRAAFix Esports for doing the paints for us with the quick switch. He didn't have to do that, and he dedicated his time for that, so I really appreciate it.
Once again, Matt Taylor, your race winner here tonight. Second place goes the direction of Gavin Sanders, and for Gavin Sanders, a strong charge to the pack for yourself. 13 positions gained throughout the night. What was that like from the cockpit?
Yeah, it was definitely a tricky night for sure. The track conditions were evolving pretty much every time we strapped on new tires. It felt like a completely different car. So not too bad, but super grateful to our team Race First group and everything they do for iRacing, including the Monday night IndyFix broadcast, and to 40 Racewear as well. This group is killer, and we tackle it like a team. So far so good, and overall can't complain when you're getting interviewed, right?
And you've shown some good pace throughout the season, to say the very least, to back up some of the words said there too. But you mentioned the differences from tire to tire to tire. What was that like trying to adapt? What did you have to do to adapt to keep up the speed as the track went cooler and cooler and the lights went down, or sun went down more and more?
Yeah, it was kind of anticipating the wear on the front right. There was a lot of trail braking going on when the track was a little bit hotter, and as the sun went down, it was definitely a lot more right rear slide, and everybody kind of fishtailing off of the exits of the corners. So kind of backing everything up and trying to get a good exit without killing the right front was a big challenge tonight. And thankfully we kind of were able to weave our way through all the chaos and everybody who was struggling with it, and just conservatively and competently make our way through.
Next race is a Triple Crown. Your thoughts on that one at Indianapolis Motor Speedway?
Excited. Indianapolis is always a fun time with any sort of Indy car from any generation. So looking forward to it. Obviously, it's a big deal to everybody here, and just really thankful to what Lionheart does, and the anticipation is fantastic for one of these races. So looking forward to it.
Congratulations on the second place run, Gavin.
Thank you so much. Take care, guys.
That's Gavin Sanders in second. Chris Fowler coming across the line in third, meanwhile, was in the midst of the fight for the race lead several times. Chris, you've made a podium. You survived to the checkered. How are you feeling?
Feeling great. I got to thank Donate Life and the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation for partnering with this year. It's really great to finally get them on the podium in Speedway. It's been a rough go this year, so it feels really good to get not get taken out, not get caught up in something else, and just get a good finish. So it feels good.
I was about to say, your car has the word cursed on it. You've had pace all season in IndyCar and Speedway. What's been that like for you, knowing you've been in contention for the win several times, but then what's said on the car comes in?
It's depressing, actually. It's been a long year. We got cursed on the car because last year was just bad luck as well. So we were trying to turn it around and jinx the jinx with the curse on the car, and it worked in retro, and it just hasn't worked very well in Speedway until tonight. So hopefully we can turn this around and get some more better results. We've been up front all year, so we know we have the pace. We know we can get out, win each race. We just got to finish. Just got to stay out of trouble, stay away from other cars, and just finish. Because I know I can stay up there on the finish on the podium every race.
So with the momentum for you and your team now coming into Indy, what's that approach now like for a Triple Crown event, double points on the line?
Oh, it's going to be awesome. It's going to help our team drastically. The goal is to go out and win. It's double points. Madworks Motorsports, me, Matt, and Brian, we got a super strong team. We're ready to go. So we got all the momentum on our side right now. I think that's 2 in a row for Matt. So get on the podium for me. It's been great. So we're ready to go have Madworks and Speedway. And we're ready to go win a race at Indy.
Congratulations on the podium today.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
That's Chris Fowler rounding out your top 3. I'd like to thank him, Gavin Sanders, Matt Taylor for taking the time to speak with us during post-race coverage. And Andrew, wow, is the major thing. Nashville definitely put on a show tonight.
Yeah, it was a real show, the real driver's track, and the best driver definitely won on this day. Matt Taylor, he just put on a clinic, did exactly what he needed to do to figure out this car as the track evolved, and great job for him. But now all of these drivers, whether they had a good race or a bad race, they are all focusing forward in 1 week's and a half's time for their iRacing or for their Indy 500 here in the Speedway Series in this DW12 car, and it is the big one. It is the one that everyone wants to win, as Gavin Sanders mentioned, and so I know that as soon as the setup comes out, all of these drivers are going to be practicing as hard as they can, because it's going to be a super competitive race on July 9th here.
And a lot of work being put in by, hint, the person with me here for Indianapolis Motor Speedway, July the 9th, Triple Crown event, double points on the line, with it being more than half distance, in fact, a full distance, once again, in a week and a half's time, on a special day on a Saturday before the August 2 checkered flag stint all the way to November. But on that note, we'd like to thank you so much for tuning in for tonight's coverage here on RaceSpawn and ESTV. I'd like to take the time to thank our sponsors for tonight's coverage. First, the title sponsor for the Lionheart Speedway Series, Motor Racing. Motor Racing is revolutionizing sim racing with the development of industry-leading hardware and software products like their R9 direct drive wheelbase and GS steering wheel. Featuring zero-delay wireless technology made from high-end materials, Motor Racing delivers the precision you need to reach victory lane. The Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperx.com. You're passionate about sim racing, but it always feels a little flat compared to feeling and driving like a real car. Now you can actually feel it like it's what it's like to drive a race car. ButtKicker haptic hardware and software is easy to install and lets you feel every bump in the track, slip of your tire, and engine red line. The tactile feedback is so accurate and realistic, you'll be driving faster and having more fun than ever before. Tonight also brought to you by Next Level Racing, an industry-level cockpit and motion simulator manufacturer devoted to creating the most immersive experience possible for the global sim racing community. Take your racing to the next level and visit www.nextlevelracing.com. And by Gomez Sim Industries, makers of high-end esports equipment and controls. Precision built using nothing but the best materials available today. Passion and handmade craftsmanship drive each made-to-order build, creating a driving experience like no other. Visit GomezSimIndustries.com. And it's not just those, but the many others who take part in Lionheart competition that support this series that help make things tick. To find out more, go to LionheartRacingSeries.com to be able to learn more about Lionheart's many partners for their 2022 campaigns. The next time the Lionheart Speedway Series hits the racetrack is for Indianapolis Motor Speedway for the Next Level Racing Indy 500 presented by SimRace 24/7. The Triple Crown race takes place on a Saturday, July the 9th starting at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. Pacific. Who will be able to kiss the bricks and add their name to history? Find out at Indianapolis Motor Speedway at 4 p.m. on July the 9th. With that, it's time to say goodbye. For Tyler Maxson and Andrew Kinsella, I'm Justin Prince. Thank you for watching RaceSpot TV and ESTV's coverage of tonight's action. Congratulations to Matt Taylor, your winner at Nashville.